Right, so that tip came out pretty good. A little bit of warping um, on the very edges. I had changed temperatures around a bit, and more about that in a minute. And I also had to place it diagonally just to make sure that the build plate was getting enough temperature into it. So a bit of warping on this edge and a bit of warping on the leading edge. Apart from that, some partial bubbling on the towards the tip, and that's probably because the material may have got a bit of moisture in it. It might also be because the temperature was 230. So I've lowered the temperature a bit on the hot end and increased the temperature just a little bit more on the bed. I also increased the brim as well, just by a small amount. Try to hold it down onto the plate a little bit better. The plate itself is performing perfectly well. The problem is when you get to these, what we call thin wall prints, they are very difficult to keep on the bed. May have to mess around with the extrusion multiplier. I've been reading a little bit about that recently. So this is the left tip, same kind of thing. The only difference is I've made small alterations to the temperature. Dropped it by 5 Celsius on the head, 225, and build plate increased by 2 Celsius. Everything else is the same. It's going to be a one wall thickness, zero, actually a top thickness does need to be 3, sorry, and the bottom is 0. Uh, right, let's just slice it. And take a quick look at it. So let's preview it. All the way down to the bottom. Again, there should be should be a hollow at the bottom. It's going to dovetail onto the next piece, and then coming all the way up to the tip. Because we've got 3 layers in here, there should be no gap just there. If you don't put a top layer, you will get a gap. You'll get a little hole. That's the way it's designed. So that looks okay. So we'll send it off to Octoprint. Yeah, this surface almost becomes semi-liquid. It glossy. We can see it becomes increasingly glossy as you put heat into it. And with that, it becomes very sticky. Um, the brim there, by the way, I think was 4 mm. I forgot to point that out, but I think I said it was anyway. So I think somewhere down here, what have I set it to? Yeah, 4. Brim line count of 6. You can also mess around with brim thickness. There are lots of different brim settings. Yeah, there's line width, skirt brim line width, flow, skirt brim flow. So these might be worth messing around with in terms of getting the brim so it's really thick. But the truth is that warping is very forceful, and because of the heat involved and the plastic is semi-liquid, that it does tend to, at the very corners, especially with these thin wall prints, the very, very corners, that's where you tend to have the problems. Brim distance, well, you can set brim distance. It's already right on the edge anyway, so I think we're okay there. But anyway, there are some additional settings you could have a look at. You have to kind of experiment, and each time I print, I typically experiment with slightly different settings just to see um, if there's an improvement. So warping seems to be just the way it is, you know. It's very difficult. I think I need to go. This is where it was lifting, just here slightly, and just there slightly. Uh, yeah, so it's a bit of a black art. You just have to keep going at it until you get it right. So we'll see how that comes out in the wash, so to speak, and I'll catch up with you after it's done.